Adrienne, pack your things. You're done here. Effective immediately. The conference room fell silent. 27 faces stared at me as Felix Martinez stood behind his chair, arms crossed, wearing that smug expression I'd seen him use on vendors who disappointed him. These weren't just any faces. These were the biggest accounts our consulting firm had ever landed. The kind of clients who could make or break careers with a single recommendation. Felix, what are you talking about? My voice came out smaller than I intended. I'd been presenting our quarterly efficiency improvements, the same improvements that had saved these companies a combined $4 million over the past year. What I'm talking about is dead weight. He gestured toward the presentation screen, where my charts still glowed. These people pay premium rates for premium talent. They deserve better than mediocre contributions from someone who's clearly reached her ceiling. Mrs. Ton from the manufacturing giant shifted uncomfortably. Mr. Rodriguez from the logistics company looked down at his notes. I'd worked personally with both of them for months, staying late to solve problems Felix never even knew existed. I think there might be some confusion, I started. No confusion at all. Felix's voice grew louder, more theatrical. He was performing now, I realized. Showing off. I've been carrying this team for too long, making excuses for subpar work. These clients need to see that we're serious about excellence. The woman from the pharmaceutical company, whose supply chain I'd completely redesigned last month, wouldn't meet my eyes. The CEO, whose inventory system I'd rebuilt from scratch, just stared at his hands. The truth is, Felix continued, his voice filling the room like he was delivering a keynote speech. Adrienne's been coasting, taking credit for team efforts, contributing at maybe 20% while the rest of us pick up the slack. These companies are investing serious money with us, and they deserve transparency about who's actually delivering results. My hands were steady, but my mind was racing. Taking credit for team efforts? I'd personally worked 60-hour weeks for the past 8 months. I'd solved the Riverside Corporation's warehouse bottleneck that Felix couldn't figure out after trying for 6 months. I'd designed the algorithm that automated Johnson Industries' scheduling system, saving them $200,000 annually. I need you to gather your personal items and leave. Security will escort you out. Felix's tone had shifted to administrative, like he was discussing lunch catering. Your final pay will be processed according to company policy. Before I dive deeper, could you please take a few seconds to tell me in the comments where you're listening from? Because I want to know where my story is reaching. And please like, subscribe, and hit the bell notification, because this story is going places none of us expected. My name is Adrienne Walsh, and I want you to understand something about the moment I'm describing. This wasn't just professional humiliation. This was the complete demolition of 3 years of my life in front of people who'd trusted me with their biggest challenges. Felix had just painted me as incompetent in front of clients who'd specifically requested me for their projects. But here's what made it truly devastating. I genuinely believed Felix was a good person. I respected him. I'd even covered for him countless times when clients called with questions he couldn't answer. There's no need for security, I managed to say. I can find my own way out. Actually, company policy requires, "Let her go, Felix." Mrs. Tan's voice cut through his response. She's been nothing but professional with us. Felix's jaw tightened, but he nodded curtly. Fine, Adrienne. Your access badges will be deactivated within the hour. I gathered my laptop and the portfolio I'd brought for the presentation. My hands moved automatically while my brain tried to process what had just happened. 3 years of building relationships, solving impossible problems, working weekends to meet deadlines erased in 5 minutes. As I reached the conference room entrance, I heard Felix's voice resume its confident cadence. Now, let's talk about the real innovations we've been developing. I didn't look back. The elevator ride to the parking level felt eternal. My reflection in the polished steel doors showed a woman who looked exactly like me, but somehow different. Like something fundamental had shifted, and I hadn't caught up yet. My car was on the 3rd level, in the spot I'd parked in almost every day for 3 years. The same spot where Felix and I had sometimes walked together after late client meetings, discussing strategies and improvements. He'd often mentioned how much he appreciated having someone reliable on the team. I sat in my car for maybe 20 minutes, just staring at the concrete wall in front of me. My phone buzzed with text messages, probably colleagues who'd heard what happened. I didn't check them. Instead, I found myself thinking about something completely unrelated. 3 years ago, Felix had mentioned during a casual conversation that his mother was dealing with memory issues. He'd seemed overwhelmed, talking about care facilities and insurance complications. He'd mentioned the costs were astronomical, especially for places that specialized in advanced dementia care. She worked as a teacher for 40 years, he'd said during that conversation, helped thousands of kids learn to read. Now she doesn't remember my name half the time. The good facilities are $3,000 a month minimum, and that's just for basic care. The place that could really help her is twice that. I'd done some research that weekend, not because he'd asked. He hadn't. Just because I couldn't stop thinking about a retired teacher slowly losing herself while her son agonized over care options he couldn't afford. The Willowbrook Memory Care Center was exactly the kind of place Felix had described as impossible to afford. They specialized in innovative dementia treatment, had certified specialists, maintained a 1-to-3 staff ratio. They also had a partnership with the Morrison Medical Foundation, which provided anonymous sponsorships for families who needed assistance. I'd called them that Monday. I'd like to establish an anonymous monthly payment for a potential resident. I'd told their billing coordinator. The family believes insurance and their savings are covering costs, but I'd like to ensure there are never any gaps in payment. We do have that program, she'd confirmed. The family would receive standard billing statements showing insurance coverage and foundation assistance. They'd never know about the private sponsorship unless you chose to reveal it. Perfect. I'd prefer they never know. It took 2 weeks to arrange everything through the foundation. Felix's mother, Elena Martinez, moved into Willowbrook on a Tuesday. Felix had been amazed that everything worked out so perfectly with the insurance and foundation assistance. It's like a miracle, he'd told me that week. She's in the best facility in the state, and somehow all the financial pieces just fell into place. She's getting art therapy, music therapy, specialized cognitive exercises, things I never could have provided. For 3 years, I'd made those monthly payments. $6,000 every month, automatically transferred through the Morrison Foundation to ensure Elena Martinez received the care she deserved. Felix had no idea. He'd mentioned several times how grateful he was that his family's financial planning had somehow covered everything. He'd built his confidence on that foundation of security. Knowing his mother was safe and well cared for had freed him to focus on work, to take risks, to develop the leadership style that had earned him promotions and respect. Now, sitting in my car after being professionally destroyed by the same man, I realized something that made my chest feel hollow. Felix Martinez had spent 3 years taking credit for work he didn't do, while I'd spent 3 years ensuring his family's stability through kindness he didn't even know he was receiving. I drove home to my apartment, a modest one-bedroom place about 15 minutes from the office. I'd chosen it specifically for the short commute, back when I'd believed that dedication and hard work would be recognized and rewarded. My apartment was quiet in the way that only comes after devastating news. Even ordinary sounds, the refrigerator humming, traffic outside, seemed muffled and distant. I made coffee and sat at my kit-tan table with my laptop. 3 years of work contacts, project files, client relationships, all of it now belonging to a company that had just discarded me like defective merchandise. But I still had access to my personal accounts, my banking portal, the Morrison Foundation's donor interface. The monthly payment to Willowbrook was scheduled for tomorrow. My phone buzzed with another text message. This time I looked. It was from Maria Santos, one of my colleagues. Adrienne, what the hell happened? Felix just sent in company-wide notifications saying you decided to pursue other opportunities. Everyone knows that's not what happened. Then another from James Liu. Just heard about the meeting. This is insane. You basically built half our client solutions. And another from Rebecca Thompson. Felix is telling people you'd been struggling for months, and that letting you go was a difficult but necessary decision. Nobody's buying it. So he was already rewriting history, creating a narrative where he was the thoughtful manager making tough choices, rather than the man who destroyed someone's career for entertainment. I set my phone aside and opened the Morrison Foundation portal. Elena Martinez. Account 2847. Monthly payment 60. Next payment date. Tomorrow, 3 a.m. automatic transfer. There was a simple link. Modify or cancel recurring donation. I stared at that link for a long time. This wasn't about revenge. This was about something much simpler and much more devastating. Felix Martinez was about to discover exactly who he really was when the foundation of his life, a foundation he'd never even known existed, suddenly disappeared. He'd learned that his financial confidence, his family security, his ability to focus on career advancement had all been built on the generosity of someone whose professional worth he just publicly demolished. The cruelest part wasn't that I was planning to hurt him. The cruelest part was that I was simply going to stop helping him, and that would be enough to reveal the truth about everything he'd built his life on. I clicked the link. The cancellation form was straightforward. Reason for discontinuing support, with options ranging from financial hardship to change in circumstances to recipient no longer qualifies. I selected change in circumstances and typed in the comments section, donor relationship with recipient has fundamentally changed. Effective date. Immediately, I submitted the form. Within seconds, I received a confirmation. Recurring donation, 2,847 has been successfully canceled. Final payment will not process. Willowbrook Memory Care Center will receive notification of funding discontinuation within 24 hours. I closed my laptop and sat in the silence of my apartment. In 48 hours, Felix would receive his first bill for his mother's actual care costs. $6,000 due immediately, with a note explaining that foundation assistance had been discontinued due to changes in donor circumstances. He'd probably call the billing office, confused and panicked. They'd explain that his account had been supported by an anonymous donor through the Morrison Foundation, but that support had been withdrawn. He'd realized that for 3 years he'd been living a lie, that someone had been secretly holding his family's life together while he'd spent those same years building his reputation on borrowed competence and unearned confidence. And when he finally connected the timing, when he realized that his financial security had vanished exactly 24 hours after he'd publicly humiliated the one person in his life who'd shown his family true compassion, the devastation would be complete. But the most brutal part of all? I hadn't planned this as revenge. I'd simply withdrawn my unearned kindness after he'd proven he didn't deserve it. The next morning, I woke up feeling strangely calm. Not happy. What had happened was still devastating, but there was a clarity I hadn't expected. Like when you finally understand a puzzle that's been confusing you for months. I made breakfast and checked my personal messages. 7 missed calls from Felix's office line. 12 text messages from colleagues, 3 voicemails I wasn't ready to hear yet. But the most interesting message was from Mrs. Tan, the manufacturing client from yesterday's meeting. She'd somehow gotten my personal contact information. Adrienne, this is Linda Tan from yesterday's presentation. I wanted to reach out personally because what happened was completely inappropriate. Several of us clients have been discussing this and were deeply concerned. Felix's behavior was unprofessional, and frankly, it contradicts everything we've experienced working with you. Please call me when you have a moment. I saved the message and kept scrolling. Similar messages from 3 other clients, all expressing confusion, concern, and something that sounded suspiciously like doubt about Felix's version of events. Around noon, my phone rang. Unknown number. Hello? Adrienne? This is Dr. Patricia Vance from Willowbrook Memory Care Center. I'm calling about Elena Martinez's account. My heart rate picked up. Yes? We received notification yesterday that her foundation sponsorship has been discontinued. I wanted to reach out because this is quite unusual. The anonymous donor has been incredibly consistent for 3 years, and the family has no backup payment method on file. I was wondering if you might have any insight into alternative funding sources since you were listed as the emergency contact for billing questions. I'd forgotten about that detail. When I'd set up the payments, they'd required an emergency contact in case of issues with the foundation transfers. I think you'll need to contact the family directly about payment arrangements going forward, I said carefully. Of course. It's just that Mr. Martinez has always believed his costs were covered through insurance and family savings. He's going to be quite shocked to learn about the actual payment amounts. We're required to give families 72 hours notice before any care disruption. But honestly, most families need more time to arrange this level of funding. 72 hours. Felix had about 60 hours left before he'd need to come up with $6,000 or move his mother to a different facility. I understand this puts the family in a difficult position, I said. The timing is particularly challenging because Mr. Martinez just mentioned yesterday that his work situation has become quite stressful, something about restructuring at his company. The last thing anyone needs during family difficulties is sudden financial pressure. After I hung up, I realized what had happened. Felix had called his mother yesterday, probably seeking comfort after the chaos of firing me in front of major clients. He'd mentioned work stress to the care facility staff, not knowing he was about to discover that his work decisions and his family's security were connected in ways he'd never imagined. That afternoon, I decided to visit the coffee shop across from our office building, not to spy exactly, but because I needed to normalize being in that area. If I was going to rebuild my career, I couldn't spend the rest of my life avoiding downtown. I was reading on my laptop when I saw Felix burst through the office building's entrance. Even from across the street, I could see his agitation. He was on his phone, pacing back and forth on the sidewalk, gesturing wildly with his free hand. 20 minutes later, he went back inside, only to emerge again 10 minutes after that. More pacing, more frantic gesturing. My phone buzzed with another unknown number. Adrienne Walsh? This is Felix Martinez. We need to talk. His voice sounded strained, almost desperate, completely different from the confident authority he displayed yesterday. I don't think we have anything to discuss, Felix. Please. Something's happened with my mother's care facility, and I think there might be some kind of mistake or misunderstanding. I know yesterday was. I know I handled things poorly. But this is about my family. What kind of mistake? They're saying her funding has been discontinued, that someone was paying her bills anonymously for 3 years, and now they've stopped. But that's impossible. Our insurance covers most of it, and we've been managing the rest through family resources. I waited. Adrienne, the billing coordinator, said the emergency contact for questions about the payments was you? I don't understand how that's possible. The silence stretched between us. Across the street, I could see him standing outside the office building, looking smaller somehow than he had yesterday. I need to go, Felix. Wait, please. If you know something about this, if there's been some kind of administrative error, my mother could lose her place at Willowbrook. She's been there for 3 years. It's the only stability she has left. I hope you figure it out. I hung up. Within an hour, I had 6 more missed calls from him. Then, text messages started arriving. Adrienne, please call me back. The facility is asking for 6-0 by Friday, or they'll start transfer proceedings. I don't understand what's happening. Can we please talk? The foundation says the donor withdrew support due to changed circumstances. What circumstances? What donor? I turned off my phone. The next day, I met Linda Tan for coffee. She'd insisted on the meeting, and honestly, I was curious about the client perspective on everything that had happened. Before we discuss anything else, she said as soon as we sat down, I want you to know that several of us have been in contact with Felix's supervisor. What happened in that meeting was completely unacceptable. I appreciate that, but I don't want to cause more problems. Adrienne, you're not causing problems. You solved our warehouse efficiency crisis last month. Felix took credit for that solution in our follow-up reports. But we know who actually did the work. We know who stayed until midnight on conference calls with our logistics team. We know who built the models that saved us $800,000 this year. She leaned forward. Felix has been presenting your work as his own for months. We've been uncomfortable about it, but we assumed it was normal team collaboration. Yesterday's performance made us realize something much more troubling was going on. What do you mean? We started comparing notes. The Johnson Industries automation project that Felix presented as his innovation? Their CEO told us you designed and implemented the entire system. The Riverside Corporation supply chain optimization that won Felix that leadership award? Their operations manager said you were the only consultant who understood their distribution challenges. My coffee had grown cold, but I kept holding the cup anyway. We're not just upset about how he treated you, Linda continued. We're upset about being deceived. We've been paying premium consulting rates under the impression that Felix was the strategic mind behind these solutions. Now we're discovering that the actual innovator was being treated as dispensable support staff. So what happens now? Felix's supervisor has called emergency meetings with all the affected clients. We're being asked to clarify exactly who we've been working with and who's been delivering results. Several companies are considering moving their contracts to firms where they can work directly with the people actually solving their problems. I thought about Felix, probably frantically trying to maintain client relationships while simultaneously trying to figure out how to pay for his mother's care. There's something else, Linda said. Yesterday after you left, Felix tried to present some kind of new innovation strategy, but when we asked specific questions about implementation, he couldn't answer them. He kept saying he'd need to review the technical details with his team. It became pretty obvious that he didn't understand the systems he'd been taking credit for. That must have been uncomfortable. Uncomfortable doesn't begin to describe it. We had invested significant trust in someone who turned out to be a complete facade. That evening, I turned my phone back on. 17 missed calls from Felix. The text messages had evolved from confusion to panic to something approaching desperation. Adrienne, I've been thinking about our conversation yesterday, and I think I understand what happened. If you've been helping with my mother's care, I need to know. This isn't about pride anymore. The facility says they need payment by tomorrow morning, or they'll start the transfer process. My mother doesn't understand why people are talking about her moving. She's terrified and confused. Please. I know I made a terrible mistake yesterday. I was trying to impress the clients, and I chose the wrong way to do it. But my mother doesn't deserve to suffer because of my poor judgment. I'll do anything to make this right. Publicly apologize, recommend you to other firms, provide references. Just please tell me how to fix this. The last message was just 4 words. I know it's you. I called him back. Adrienne? He answered on the first ring. Yes. Thank you for calling. I've been trying to figure this out for 2 days, and there's only one explanation that makes sense. You've been paying for my mother's care? Why would I do that? I don't know. That's what I can't understand. We barely knew each other personally. I never asked for help. I never even told you about the financial struggles. But he had told me. 3 years ago, during one casual conversation about family responsibilities and overwhelming costs, he'd probably forgotten it completely. But I hadn't. Felix, I need to ask you something, and I want you to answer honestly. Anything. Yesterday, when you fired me in front of those clients, did you believe what you were saying about my work? Long pause. I was trying to demonstrate leadership, show them that we maintain high standards. That's not what I asked. Did you believe I was dead weight? Did you believe I'd been coasting and taking credit for other people's work? Another pause. Longer this time. No, he said quietly. No, I didn't believe that. So, you destroyed my reputation and my career using lies you knew were false, in front of people whose respect I'd spent 3 years earning. Yes. While I was secretly ensuring your family's stability out of kindness, you didn't even know you were receiving. Yes. And now, you want me to continue that kindness, after you've proven you don't deserve it. The silence stretched so long, I thought he might have hung up. I don't know how to fix this, he finally said. I don't know how to undo what I did, or how to deserve forgiveness. I know I don't have any right to ask for. I just know that my mother is going to suffer because of my choices, and I can't live with that. Felix, your mother isn't going to suffer. You're going to figure out how to take care of her yourself, the way you should have been doing all along. You're going to learn what it actually costs to maintain the life you've been living, and you're going to find a way to earn it honestly. I can't afford $6,000 a month, not without someone else carrying the burden for you. He didn't answer. You spent 3 years building your confidence and your career on a foundation you didn't even know existed. You took credit for work you didn't do, while someone else quietly took care of your family responsibilities. And when you finally felt secure enough to show your true character, you chose cruelty. Adrienne, I'm not angry, Felix. I'm disappointed. I genuinely respected you. I thought you were someone worth helping. Yesterday, you proved that my kindness was wasted on someone who didn't deserve it. I hung up. 2 weeks later, Linda Tan called with an update. Felix had been placed on administrative leave pending a full review of his project attributions. Several major clients had requested to work exclusively with other team members going forward. The company was restructuring to ensure more direct client access to actual project contributors. What about his mother? I asked, though I wasn't sure why. I heard through colleagues that he's moved her to a different facility, somewhere more affordable. He's been working nights and weekends at a consulting firm across town, trying to make up the income difference. A month after that, I started my own consulting practice. 3 of Felix's former clients became my first accounts, specifically requesting the expertise they'd been told was someone else's all along. I never made another anonymous payment to anyone's family, not because I'd lost faith in kindness, but because I'd learned that true generosity requires wisdom about who deserves it. Felix taught me that some people will take your best intentions and use them as stepping stones to elevate themselves while diminishing you. He showed me that my compassion was valuable enough to be more selective about how I shared it. But he also taught me something else. The most devastating revenge isn't what you do to someone who wrongs you. It's simply withdrawing the support they never earned and letting them discover who they really are, without your invisible help. If this story resonated with you, if you've ever given more than you received or supported someone who didn't value your sacrifice, please hit that like button and let me know in the comments. Share your own experiences with misplaced kindness or professional betrayal, and subscribe for more real stories about the complicated ways people reveal their true character when they think no one important is watching. Your support means everything to someone rebuilding after learning that not everyone deserves the best parts of who you are.